The galaxy had been bleeding for years. Stars that once held trade routes and colonies were now silent, their worlds scarred by fire and ash. The long war between humans and the Veyron kingdom had left nothing untouched. Planets that once welcomed travelers with markets and music now stood in ruins, their skies filled with drifting metal wrecks. For Princess Illyra of Veyra, the war had been more than a tale of armies. It had been her life. She had grown up inside the echo of battle speeches, inside rooms where commanders argued, and inside a palace where every new scar of war meant more sorrow for her people. She had seen her father, the king, grow tired with each passing year, his once proud voice becoming weaker. Now, at last, the war was over. Not because the Veyrons had chosen peace, but because they had been forced into it. The final battle had ended with the human armies standing tall. Their soldier Ryan, the one the humans called their champion, had broken the Veyron fleet. His strategy, his bravery, and his unshaken will had ended centuries of Veyron pride. To Illyra, the name was just another name of a warrior who had stolen victory from her people. She had no reason to think otherwise. Peace talks had begun. But peace, Illyra thought, was just another kind of war, one fought with words, stares, and unspoken threats. Her ship glided toward the human station where the meeting would take place. Outside the viewing window, the great shape of the station grew larger, like a floating city of silver and steel. It was built by human hands, and it carried the marks of their style, strong, sharp, and practical. Illyra stood at the window in her long pale cloak, her attendants behind her. Her golden eyes reflected the stars, but inside them, there was no light. She felt the weight of her people's hope on her shoulders. She was young, yes, but the galaxy did not care about her age. To the Veyrons, she was a princess. To the humans, she was a defeated enemy. "Your Highness," said one of her advisors softly. "The humans will treat you with pride. But remember, they are not your friends." Illyra nodded. She did not need the reminder. She carried her people's pain inside her heart like a stone. Still, as the ship moved closer, Illyra could not stop her thoughts from wandering. She wondered about the human soldier, the one who had ended it all. What sort of person could carry such weight? Was he a cold, ruthless killer? Or a man shaped by duty, like her? She expected to see a hardened face, someone scarred by war. She was prepared to hate him, but also to respect him. The ship docked with the station. Metal arms locked them in place, and the doors slid open. The air smelled different here, not of the soft oils of Veyra ships but of iron, metal, and a faint tang of smoke. Human soldiers stood in formation to welcome her, their armor shining under the bright station lights. They did not lower their heads in respect, but they did not mock her either. They were disciplined. Illyra walked forward, her chin lifted high. If they expected her to bow, they would be disappointed. She was Veyron royalty, and she would not let them see weakness. As she entered the grand hall, she noticed banners hanging from the walls. Human symbols of victory were displayed with pride. She also saw screens showing news from across the galaxy. Everywhere, humans were being praised as liberators. It stung her heart, but she held her expression still. Then she heard the name again. Ryan. The champion of humans. The soldier who broke her people's will. The one she must meet face to face. The human council spoke of him often during the welcoming words, their voices proud. They said he had not only fought with strength but also with wisdom, guiding fleets when older commanders had failed. To them, he was not just a soldier, he was the symbol of human endurance. Illyra kept her face calm, but inside, something stirred. She felt a strange pull at that name. Ryan. Why did it feel familiar? The galaxy was large, yet the sound of it touched something buried in her memory. She shook the thought away. The meeting would be tomorrow. Tomorrow, she would stand across from him, the soldier who had ended the war. Tomorrow, she would see if he was truly the monster her people described or something else. For now, she stood in silence, the weight of a broken galaxy pressing down on her. And somewhere, in the shadows of her mind, a faint memory stirred, a memory of laughter, of running through crystal fields, of a boy who once held her hand when the world was simple. But she told herself it was nothing. That boy was gone. That life was gone. This was war. This was peace. And she was ready to face whatever came. Ryan never thought the galaxy would call him a hero. To him, he was only a soldier who had survived too many battles. He had fought because there was no choice. The Varen fleets had pushed deep into human space, destroying colonies, breaking families, leaving scars that would never heal. Ryan had stood in the middle of all that fire and chosen not to fall. But now, everywhere he went, people whispered his name. The Human Council had placed him on the highest stage, calling him their champion, their defender, the soldier who ended the war. When Ryan walked through the station, civilians stopped and stared. Some even tried to thank him, though he only gave them a small nod in return. He did not feel like a hero. He felt tired, older than his years, and full of memories he wished he could forget. That night, before the peace talks, Ryan sat alone in a quiet chamber of the station. He had removed his armor, placing it neatly against the wall. His uniform was simple, marked with medals he did not care to wear. He looked at his reflection in the window, at the sharp lines of his face, the faint scars across his jaw, and the eyes that had seen too much. Was this truly the face of a hero? He remembered the last battle clearly. The Varen fleet had outnumbered them. Even the older human commanders had believed defeat was certain. But Ryan had seen something others had not, a weak point in their formation, a flaw in the way their ships moved. He had taken the risk, leading his squadron into the heart of the enemy, breaking their rhythm, and turning chaos into victory. The humans called it bravery. Ryan called it desperation. He had done it because there was no other way. A soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. A council member stepped in, smiling. "Tomorrow, you will meet the princess," the man said. "Remember, she represents the defeated kingdom. Do not let her pride shake your resolve. To the galaxy, you are proof that humanity cannot be broken." Ryan only nodded. He did not answer. He had no hatred for the princess. He had fought soldiers, not her. He had fought to protect his people, not to humiliate hers. When the council member left, Ryan leaned back in his chair. His thoughts drifted, uninvited, to a memory long forgotten. A different world. A world that was neutral ground, untouched by war. He had once lived there as a boy, before he became a soldier. He remembered the crystal fields, glowing in the light of two suns. He remembered running through them with a friend, a girl, mysterious and kind. She had never told him her full name, only called herself Eli. They had played together for months, two children from different worlds, laughing as if the galaxy was not divided. But one day, she was gone. Her family had left, and Ryan never saw her again. He closed his eyes, pushing the memory away. It was foolish to think about the past now. The galaxy had burned since then, and innocence was a dream that could not return. The next morning came quickly. The great hall of the station filled with leaders, officers, and envoys from across human space. Cameras floated in the air, recording everything for news networks. The humans stood proud, their banners hanging above. At the center of it all stood Ryan. He was dressed in his uniform, polished and formal. His medals glinted under the bright lights, though he wished he could hide them. He stood tall, his back straight, his face calm. If the galaxy wanted to see their hero, then he would give them that image. The doors opened. The alien princess entered, her long cloak trailing behind her. She walked with grace, her head held high, her golden eyes sharp. The hall grew silent as every human turned to watch. This was the daughter of their enemy, the symbol of the kingdom they had defeated. Ryan's eyes met hers. For a moment, the noise of the hall disappeared. He felt something stir inside him, a strange pull he did not understand. There was something familiar in her gaze, something that echoed from long ago. He did not show it on his face, but deep within, he felt as though he had seen those eyes before. Illyra, too, hesitated. Her step slowed as she looked at him. The soldier she had been taught to hate stood before her, calm and strong. But the shape of his face, the depth of his eyes, made her heart beat faster with confusion. Neither spoke. The council filled the silence with formal greetings, talking of peace and treaties. But the air between Ryan and Illyra was different, charged with something hidden, something neither of them could yet name. Ryan kept his posture straight, listening as the words of leaders washed over him. Yet inside, one thought repeated again and again, why does she seem so familiar? And in Illyra's heart, another thought answered, why does this human remind me of a boy I once knew? The galaxy saw two enemies standing across from each other. But deep inside, two old memories were waking, ready to change everything. The council meeting stretched on for hours. Words filled the grand hall, words of treaties, trade routes, promises, and conditions. Leaders from both sides spoke loudly, some with anger, some with forced politeness. But for Illyra and Ryan, the voices felt far away. Their eyes met more than once, and each time it happened, something stirred within them, like a forgotten song returning to memory. When the meeting ended, the council arranged private introductions. The princess and the soldier were to meet alone, away from the crowd, to build trust. It was more of a test than a courtesy. Both humans and Vayrans wanted to see if these two symbols of war could stand in the same room without hatred. The chamber was quiet when Illyra entered. A large window stretched across the wall, showing the endless stars. Ryan stood there, hands behind his back, looking out. The light from the stars traced the edges of his figure, sharp and strong. Illyra stopped, studying him carefully. His posture was proud, but not arrogant. His uniform was neat, but his face carried a calm heaviness, the kind only those who had seen too much could wear. "You are the human soldier," she said softly. Her voice carried both strength and curiosity. Ryan turned. His eyes met hers, steady and calm. "And you are the Princess of Veyra." They stood in silence for a moment. It was strange, both had imagined this meeting many times during the war. She had imagined him as a merciless enemy, and he had imagined her as a distant royal who knew nothing of blood and battle. Yet now, facing each other, neither image felt true. Illyra tilted her head, studying him more closely. There was something about his eyes. They were the same shade of deep gray she remembered from long ago, from a time when war did not exist between them. Her heart skipped. No, she thought. It cannot be. But the memory pressed forward anyway. A boy's laughter. A boy's hand holding hers as they ran through glowing fields of crystal. A boy's voice, warm and fearless. His name had been Ryan. Her breath caught. She whispered before she could stop herself. "Ryan." He blinked, surprised. "Yes. That is my name." The sound of it, spoken in his own voice, sent a rush of recognition through her. She stepped closer, her golden eyes wide. Do you remember the fields? The twin sons. A girl who called herself Eli." Ryan froze. The chamber seemed to shrink around him. He had locked away that memory long ago, convinced it was a dream he would never see again. But now, hearing her words, it came rushing back. The fields, glowing with light. The girl who had laughed beside him. The girl who had disappeared without a goodbye. His voice was quiet, almost unbelieving. "Eli." Illyra's heart pounded. "Yes," she breathed. It was me. I was Eli. For a long moment, neither moved. The silence between them was heavy, filled with years of distance and the shadow of war. Yet under that shadow, something bright flickered, the bond of childhood, alive again. Ryan spoke first, his tone low but steady. All these years. I thought I would never see you again. Illyra's lips trembled with a faint smile, though her eyes were wet with unshed tears. Nor I. I thought you were only a memory. And yet, here you stand, the one who brought my people to their knees. Her words carried pain, but also truth. The boy she had once trusted had grown into the man her kingdom now feared. Ryan's chest tightened. I did not fight for glory, Illyra. I fought because I had to. Because if I did not, my people would fall. I know, she whispered. She looked away, her hands clenched. And I fought because my people demanded it. We were caught in the war of our elders. And still, it took you of all people to end it. Ryan stepped closer. Perhaps fate has a strange sense of humor. She laughed softly, though it carried no joy. Or perhaps fate is cruel. They stood near the window, stars shining around them, as if the galaxy itself listened to their words. Both carried the weight of nations on their shoulders, yet in that moment, they were simply Ryan and Eli again, two children who had once dreamed of a world without divisions. But the world was no longer simple. Illyra straightened, regaining her royal composure. Do not think our past will change what must be done here. My people expect me to fight for their honor. They will not forgive me if I show weakness. And mine expect me to stand as their symbol, Ryan replied. They see me as proof that humans cannot be defeated. I cannot betray that trust. Their words were heavy, but their eyes told another story. Behind the walls of duty, something softer still lived. As Illyra turned to leave, she paused at the door. Her voice softened, almost like the girl she once was. Still, Ryan, it seems the galaxy wished for us to meet again. Perhaps not as friends, perhaps not as enemies, but as something that will decide the future. He watched her go, his heart caught between pride and longing. The boy in him wanted to call her back, but the soldier in him stayed silent. Alone again, Ryan whispered into the quiet chamber, words only the stars could hear. Eli, after all these years. The following days on the human station were filled with endless talks, signed documents, and tense debates. Leaders of both sides spoke of the future, but their words were heavy with suspicion. Trust was still a dream, not a reality. Yet in the middle of all the politics, something quiet began to grow again between Illyra and Ryan. They met often, sometimes by arrangement, sometimes by accident. A glance across the council chamber, a shared word in the hallway, a brief silence when both found themselves alone. Each meeting reminded them that the war had not erased everything. Memories, though buried, had begun to return. One evening, Illyra walked through the gardens of the station. Humans had built them as a place of calm, with trees from Earth and flowers from allied colonies. The air smelled of green leaves and soil, something rare among metal walls and starships. Ryan was already there, standing by a pool of still water, watching the reflection of the stars above. Illyra hesitated, but then stepped closer. You come here often, she asked. Ryan glanced at her, then back at the water. Sometimes. It's quiet here. Reminds me of places I thought I lost. Illyra walked to his side. The fields, she whispered. He turned his head sharply. Her golden eyes were soft, filled with the same light he remembered from long ago. Yes, he said quietly. The crystal fields. The twin suns. You remember them too. Her lips curved into a faint smile. How could I forget? I was not a princess there. I was just a girl. And you were not a soldier, you were just a boy who laughed at everything. Ryan almost smiled at the memory. You told me once that the crystals sang when the wind touched them. I believed you. They did sing, Illyra said with a playful tone. Perhaps you were too human to hear. For the first time in years, both laughed together, softly, like children who had found their secret game again. But soon, silence returned, heavier than before. Illyra lowered her gaze. Those days feel like another life. Sometimes I wonder if they were only dreams. They were real, Ryan said firmly. More real than all this. He gestured toward the metal walls of the station, toward the banners and guards and endless duty. We were free then. We belonged only to ourselves. Her heart ached at his words. For a moment, she wanted to believe they could return to that freedom. But reality was sharper than memory. You are right, she said. But we are no longer children. You are the hero of your people. And I must be the voice of mine. The galaxy does not care about our past. Perhaps not, Ryan admitted. But I do. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. Illyra looked at him, searching his face. The soldier who had ended her people's pride stood before her, yet she saw not only the soldier. She saw the boy who had held her hand when the world was kind. Her chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to tell him that she remembered every laugh, every shared secret, every moment of sunlight on their faces. But duty held her tongue. Instead, she asked, "Do you ever wish the war had never begun?" Every day, Ryan answered. I fought because I had to. But if I could choose, I would have chosen peace. Always. Illyra nodded slowly. So would I. They stood in silence again, the pool of water reflecting their faces side by side. For that moment, the galaxy seemed far away. They were only Ryan and Eli once more. But the spell broke when a voice called from the garden entrance. A human officer bowed to Ryan. Commander, the council requests you. Ryan gave a short nod. Before leaving, he looked at Illyra one last time. His eyes carried a message he could not say aloud, I have not forgotten. Neither should you. When he was gone, Illyra sat by the pool, staring at the stars. Her heart was heavy with two worlds, the world of memory and the world of duty. That night, she dreamed of the past. She dreamed of running through the glowing fields, her laughter echoing with Ryan's. She dreamed of a promise they once made under the twin suns that no matter what worlds they came from, they would always meet again. When she woke, her heart whispered that perhaps fate had kept that promise. But fate was not kind. The next day, the council grew more restless. Human leaders wanted strict control over Veyron space. Veyron envoys demanded dignity, refusing to bow. Voices rose, anger burned, and Illyra felt her father's advisors pushing her to resist. She looked at Ryan across the table. His face was calm, but his eyes betrayed the same weariness she felt. Both of them knew the truth, the peace they were building was fragile, and old memories alone would not hold it together. Still, those memories mattered. For Illyra, they were proof that Ryan was not just an enemy. He was a part of her past, a part she could not erase. For Ryan, they were a reminder that beneath titles and armies, she was still Eli, the girl who once showed him beauty among the stars. And though neither spoke it aloud, both carried the same unspoken hope, that the bond of the past might become the key to saving the future. The station had become a battlefield without weapons. In the council chambers, words clashed like swords, sharp and cutting. Every side fought for power, every sentence carried hidden threats. Humans wanted full control over trade, territory, and fleets. The Veyrons demanded freedom, pride, and respect. Peace was written on the walls, but war still echoed in every voice. Illyra sat among her father's envoys, her cloak wrapped tight around her. Her face was calm, but inside, her thoughts stormed. She remembered the laughter of her people, the voices of markets and songs before the war. Now she saw only their tired faces, their broken homes, their hungry children. Her duty was clear: she had to fight for their dignity. But her heart was torn. Each time she looked across the chamber, she met Ryan's eyes. The boy she had known, the man he had become, the soldier who had saved humanity. To the council, he was their proof of strength. To her, he was proof that peace might still be possible. The council's voices grew louder, harsher. One human leader slammed his hand against the table. If the Varans wish peace, they must accept our terms without question. They lost the war. They have no right to demand anything. One of Illyra's advisors rose, his golden robe shimmering. You speak of peace, yet you speak with chains. If you wish only to humiliate us, then know this: the Varan spirit cannot be broken. The chamber erupted in shouts. Guards tightened their stance, hands near their weapons. For a moment, it seemed as if the war might begin again right here, inside the station. Then Ryan stood. The noise faded slowly as all eyes turned to him. He did not raise his voice, but his words carried. If peace is built on pride alone, it will collapse. If it is built on fear, it will not last. We must build it on something stronger. And what is that, soldier? One of the Varan advisors spat. Ryan's eyes moved to Illyra. For a heartbeat, it felt as if the chamber vanished, leaving only the two of them. Then he answered. On trust. The word hung heavy in the air. Some scoffed, some sneered, but Illyra felt her chest tighten. Trust. A fragile word, yet powerful. She thought of the promise made in the fields long ago, a promise buried under years of war. Could trust really rise again between their people? That night, Illyra walked the corridors alone. She could not sleep, her mind restless. When she turned a corner, she found Ryan there, standing by a viewing window, the stars reflecting on his face. You speak of trust, she said quietly. Ryan nodded. Because it is the only path. We can write treaties, draw borders, count weapons, but none of it matters if we cannot trust each other. Illyra's eyes lowered. And how can we? My people see you as the hand that destroyed them. Your people see me as the daughter of their enemy. Because I see more than that, Ryan said firmly. I see Eli, the girl who showed me wonder when I was young. If you and I can trust again, perhaps others can too. Her heart stirred at his words. Part of her wanted to believe, but part of her was afraid. And if we fail? She asked. Then the war will return, Ryan admitted. His voice was heavy, but his eyes did not waver. But if we do nothing, it will return anyway. At least this way, we fight for something worth keeping. Illyra stood in silence, torn between duty and memory. She thought of her father's words, her people's pride, her advisor's warnings. Then she thought of the boy who once held her hand, who now stood before her as a man with the same unshaken eyes. You stand between two worlds, she whispered. The world of your people and the world we once shared. How do you choose? Ryan's gaze softened. I don't choose. I carry both. Maybe that is what it means to be human, to carry more than one truth, even when it hurts. His words struck her heart. Perhaps that was why humans had endured the war. They were not stronger in body or sharper in mind than the Varans, but they had a way of carrying pain and hope together. Illyra turned back to the stars. Then perhaps I too must carry both. My duty to my people and my bond to you. For the first time since the war ended, Ryan allowed himself a faint smile. Then we are not enemies. Not anymore. Illyra did not smile, but her eyes shone with quiet resolve. Not enemies. But not yet allies either. We stand between. They stood side by side, silent but connected. The galaxy outside was vast and cold, but in that moment, the space between them was warm. When Illyra returned to her chambers, her advisors questioned her, warning her not to be swayed by human words. She listened, nodded, and said nothing. But deep inside, she knew the truth. Between two worlds, she had to walk carefully. Yet the boy from her past, the man who now carried the weight of his people, was the only one who understood the path she faced. And though she did not admit it aloud, she felt a new strength rising in her heart. A strength not only of duty, but of trust. The calm of the station was broken in the early hours. Alarms blared, red lights flashing across the metallic walls. Both human and Varen guards rushed through the corridors, their movements sharp and urgent. Something had gone wrong. Illyra woke to the sound, her heart hammering. She dressed quickly and joined her attendants. The voice over the station intercom was tense. Security breach. Unauthorized forces detected. Evacuate to safe zones immediately. Ryan was already moving. He had heard the alarms and ran without waiting for orders. His mind raced through possibilities: extremists from either side, spies, saboteurs. Peace was fragile, and someone wanted to shatter it before it could take root. Illyra met him in one of the hallways, and their eyes locked instantly. No words were needed. They both knew what had to be done. "We move together," Ryan said. Illyra nodded. "For our people and for the peace we are building." The corridor shook as an explosion rocked the station. Sparks flew from the walls, and smoke began to fill the air. Human and Varen guards fought back, trying to contain the chaos. But it quickly became clear that the intruders were organized, trained, and determined to destroy the station from within. Illyra and Ryan ran side by side, their past memories giving them a silent understanding of each other's movements. They ducked under fallen metal beams, avoided pools of leaking coolant, and helped civilians caught in the chaos. For a moment, Illyra felt the old fear, the one she had known as a child, return. But Ryan's presence steadied her. He moved with confidence, checking her path, guiding her through danger without hesitation. The soldier she had once feared now became her protector, just as she had instinctively shielded him years ago in the crystal fields. They reached the control center. Ryan quickly assessed the situation. Security systems were damaged, and the intruders had managed to isolate certain sections of the station. "We need to restore communications," he said. "If we can alert the council and the outer defenses, we might contain this before it spreads." Illyra nodded, her hands steady as she helped him navigate the complex control panels. She had learned much during her time as princess: the ways of diplomacy, the systems of her own people, even some human technology from their brief alliance during the war. Together, they worked quickly, their minds synchronized as if no years had passed between them. Outside the control center, sounds of battle echoed. Guards shouted commands, while explosions shook the station. But inside, there was only focus. "Almost there," Ryan said, fingers flying across the keys. Illyra glanced at him, heart racing. "You always knew how to lead," she said softly. Ryan's eyes met hers for a fleeting second. "Not always. But I never forget who I fight for." Suddenly, a small group of intruders burst through the doors. Illyra and Ryan acted without hesitation. She grabbed one, pushing him off balance while Ryan swiftly disarmed another. Their movements were instinctive, complementary. The training of a soldier and the quick reflexes of a princess combined to hold the attackers at bay until the guards arrived. When the last intruder fell, Ryan exhaled heavily. "Are you all right?" he asked, looking at Illyra. She nodded, brushing dust from her cloak. "Thanks to you." "No," Ryan replied firmly. "Thanks to both of us. We saved each other." The council soon arrived, taking stock of the damage. Leaders from both sides were shaken but unharmed. The extremists had been captured, and the threat was contained. Yet the test of trust had done more than challenge security: it had shown the potential of unity. Illyra realized that even in chaos, working together was possible. That trust, fragile and delicate as it was, could be forged in fire. Ryan stood beside her, quiet and vigilant. "This is only the beginning," he said. "If peace is to survive, we will face more challenges." Illyra looked at him, a new determination shining in her eyes. "Then we face them together. As we should have all along." For the first time in weeks, the weight of her duty felt lighter. Not because the war was over, but because she no longer carried it alone. The boy from her past, the man who had once held her hand and now stood beside her, was her ally in a galaxy full of uncertainty. As the station returned to order, the stars outside shone brighter than ever. Illyra and Ryan knew that their actions had done more than save a station. They had proven that humans and Varans could work side by side. That the past, with all its memories, could guide the future. And though neither spoke of it, both understood that this test of trust was just the beginning. The galaxy was watching, and the two who had once been children now stood ready to shape the destiny of worlds. The council chamber was quiet, more tense than ever. Both humans and Varans had gathered to witness the final discussions. Peace treaties were ready to be signed, yet the room was thick with suspicion. Every glance, every gesture, could ignite old anger. Illyra stood at the head of the Varan delegation. Her golden eyes scanned the room, calm but firm. Her cloak shimmered in the soft light, a reminder of the royalty she carried and the people who depended on her. Beside her, Ryan stood quietly, the human champion whose courage had ended the war and whose calm presence had guided her through danger. For weeks, they had spoken in private, remembering the past and learning to trust each other again. Their bond had grown stronger through challenges, through shared memories, and through the test of the station attack. Now, all that remained was the choice to show the galaxy that the future could be better than the past. The human council leader cleared his throat. "Princess Illyra, the humans have shown patience. We ask that your people accept the terms of this treaty. It is fair, just, and final." Illyra lifted her chin, her voice steady. "I will speak for my people. The Varans do not ask for more than dignity, safety, and the right to rebuild. And we will honor all terms that promote true peace, not only for our benefit, but for the future of this galaxy." A murmur ran through the human delegates. Some had expected her to demand revenge or protest harshly. Others watched curiously, sensing something different. Ryan stepped forward. His voice carried through the chamber, firm and calm. "The humans have fought hard for survival. The Varans have defended their homes. If we are to call this peace, it must be built on understanding, not victory alone." He paused, then looked directly at Illyra. The entire chamber seemed to hush, the tension folding around their silent connection. "And that," he continued, "requires trust between those who once fought, and those who must now lead." Illyra's heart skipped. She knew what he meant. It was no longer enough for their people to simply follow orders. For peace to last, they, the symbols of their nations, had to choose it with their own hearts. She turned fully to face the humans. "The soldier who ended the war is not my enemy," she said, her voice echoing in the chamber. "He is my oldest friend. Once, we were children together. And though war divided our worlds, it cannot erase what we shared, what we learned, or what we can still do together." A stunned silence followed. Leaders from both sides blinked, unsure how to respond. Illyra continued. "I choose to build the future with him," she said. "Not as enemies, not as rivals, but as partners for peace. We will guide our people together, showing that humanity and Varans can stand united." Ryan's expression softened. He took a small step toward her. "And I choose the same. Not for glory, not for power, but because it is right. Because our peoples deserve more than the mistakes of the past. Because together, we are stronger." The murmurs in the chamber grew louder, but this time with surprise and awe. Some delegates smiled, realizing the significance of their leader's words. Some nodded, understanding that the future depended not only on treaties, but on example. Illyra met Ryan's gaze, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. The girl from the crystal fields and the boy she had once called a friend now stood as leaders of their peoples, united in hope. One of the human leaders finally spoke, breaking the silence. If this is truly your choice, Princess, then humanity will follow your guidance as allies, not conquerors. A Veyran advisor added, and Veyra will honor this decision. We will rebuild, we will heal, and we will trust the humans who have proven themselves honorable. The chamber erupted in quiet applause. Not the loud celebration of victory, but the calm, steady recognition of a choice that mattered more than war. Illyra looked around at both delegations. She thought of her people, their homes, and the generations to come. And then she turned to Ryan, her oldest friend and the soldier who had once ended the war. "Let us begin," she said softly. "Yes," Ryan replied. "Together." Outside, the stars stretched endlessly across the galaxy. Planets that had been scarred by war would now see healing. Trade routes would open again, children would grow without fear, and music would return to markets long silent. The galaxy itself seemed to breathe a quiet sigh of relief. Illyra and Ryan stood side by side, two leaders from worlds once divided, now joined by trust, courage, and the memory of a friendship that had survived centuries of chaos. The war had ended not just with swords and strategy, but with understanding. And as they left the chamber together, hands brushing in silent unity, both knew that the real victory was not in the battles they had fought, but in the choice they had made. The choice to trust, to forgive, and to build something greater than either of their worlds had ever known. The galaxy was no longer broken. It was beginning to shine. And in that moment, Illyra realized something she had never known as a child in the crystal fields: true strength was not in weapons, nor in fleets, nor in fear. It was in hope. In friendship. In humans, in Veyrans, in those brave enough to stand together. The princess had made her choice. The soldier had made his. And the galaxy would never be the same.